Welcome to the Institute for Strategic Policy Solutions, and we are so excited to have you today. Thank you so much for giving us your time, and thank you for joining us for this most important conversation that ties together placemaking, wellness, and of course, dogs. I want to thank specifically Tricia Gorman, the instructor in charge at the College of Veterinary Technology, as well as the entire Veterinary Technology Center team for hosting us. We're so excited to have the acclaimed writer and urbanist, Peter Kageyama, with us here today. Peter is the author of 4 placemaking books, including the latest, For the Love of Cities Revisited, The Love Affair Between People and Their Places. As you may well know about him, he is widely recognized as a thought leader in our community in economic development and is a favorite speaker for communities seeking new ideas and new inspiration. And he has been called the Pied Piper of city love and the best friend of cities in the ongoing mission to make cities everywhere more livable and more lovable. I'm not there with you in person today for personal reasons, but I'm certainly grateful always for any input you can give to the Institute. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Peter. Have a wonderful conversation.
So thank you for coming out. I think this will be an interesting conversation. It'll be an intersection of multiple things. I am, as Aaron said, I'm an urbanist. What does that mean? It means I talk about places. I think about places and how to make them better there. And part of that is going to relate, I think, directly to what you guys are studying. And then all of it is going to relate to all of you, because no matter what you do, we all live in a place. And hopefully we want that place to be better. And I think this is an interesting conversation to have around that. And even though I'll use the word city a lot. But when I say city, most of the time I mean anything, any place. You know, it could be a town, a village, a county. It could be a school. Schools very much are a community unto themselves. And so anytime I hear the word city or you hear the word city, again, think about a place, all right? So when I talk about places, I talk about cities, I ask that question when I go out and I talk to folks. I says, do you love your city? And usually people who come out and hear a guy who's literally written books about loving their city, yeah, chances are they already do sort of fall into that category. And we would like to believe that that is a commonly held notion. And hopefully amongst you and your friends and your peers, maybe your family, hopefully you do love the place where you live and where you work. But unfortunately, that is not necessarily a commonly held situation. In fact, most people's relationship with their place is not nearly as deep and as nuanced as that. So it's on us. Those of us who actually do care about a place, we need to be the emotional standard bearers and carry that message of love out there and help our fellow residents, help our fellow community members see and feel the city the way that we do. Because remember, emotions are contagious. You smile, I smile. You cry, I feel bad. When more people start saying they love your community, more people are going to see it, more people are going to feel it, more people are going to believe it. And maybe we can create that virtuous cycle, where good things compound upon good things, and people are going to say, hey, have you been to St. Pete College lately? It's like, yeah, there's something going on. And you can literally feel it. But again, like I said, most people's relationship is not nearly as well thought out, not nearly as deep or as nuanced as that. And in fact, most people's relationship with their place can actually be summarized by one thing. It's actually the pothole. Now, none of us like potholes, right? And we will complain to our leadership to fix potholes. There could be a particularly pernicious one out there on Ulmerton Road. There could be one in the parking lot that always gets you, right? And you will complain about that. And it is this ongoing cycle, right? We complain about the potholes, our leaders fix the potholes. Here's the thing. We can fix every pothole on campus, every pothole in the county, every pothole in the state. And all of us would yawn, stretch, and say, yeah, thanks, roads don't suck quite so bad. There is no love for fixing potholes. There's no emotional return on investment for fixing potholes. This is not to say we're going to stop fixing them, but I think we can agree that we need to aspire to something more, okay? So here's the tricky part. Most of us know how to ask for our leaders to fix the potholes. It's obvious. There's a hole in the road, my car's going to fall into it. Somebody ought to fix that. But we don't necessarily know how to ask for other things. Things like beauty and art and great design. That's not in our typical vocabulary. So we as people who think about a place, as thought leaders in a place, need to not only listen to what our fellow residents are going to ask for, and they will ask for the most basic things. Hey, fix the potholes. Make sure the police and fire service arrive if I ever need them, right? But at heart, we know people want something more. So as we're thinking about building a better place, well, let's try to meet some minimum threshold requirements to be a working community. To be a working community, you got to be functional, you got to be safe. Now, when budgets get tight, and budgets always do cyclically get tight, somebody's going to say, well, you know, money's a little tight right now. Let's make it functional, let's make it safe, we paint it battleship gray and kick it out the door, and that's good enough. No, I don't think so. I don't think even the most fiscally conservative tax hawks amongst us want to live in a merely functional, safe, and battleship gray community. Okay, so what could we aspire to? What should we aspire to? Comfort. Why can't our community be comfortable? All right? Convivial in the sense that our community, our city actually helps facilitate bringing us together and connecting us with each other. Why isn't our city interesting? And maybe even more appropriately, why isn't our city fun? Where's the fun is a perfectly legitimate question that we should be asking a whole heck of a lot more as we think about better community building, right? Think about it. We've all been in some meeting or some classroom and we're wrestling with some big hairy problem. We're trying to figure out something really complex, meaty stuff, right? The next time you find yourself in one of those situations, it'd be very interesting if one of you would raise your hand and say, okay, I understand what we're doing here, but I gotta ask, where's the fun? Because when you ask that question, you actually change the dynamic in the room and the way people are fundamentally thinking about a problem. You ask, where's the fun? And someone might actually look up from their phone. And they might smile a little bit, go, yeah, where is the fun? And in that moment, you've opened up the door to the possibility of something beyond a merely technically sufficient solution. So where's the fun is a great question to ask to get us out of the weeds and get us thinking about something bigger, right? And this is a good thing because fun, again, is a legitimate goal in the work that we do. Hopefully, the work that you do, of course it's hard and it's serious, but when you find the fun in it, that's when it gets really, really rewarding. And when we find the fun in our communities, that's when they really start to resonate with us and we start to connect with them in very fundamental ways. Now, the things that I write about are the things that people tell me and they show me that they love about their communities, right? And over again, they are relatively small things, right? They're kind of personal, they're kind of intimate. And in my books, I liken them to the idea of a handwritten note that goes with the gift, right? And all of us have done this. We've given a gift without giving a note to that particular special person, right? That's a mistake. Because that note means something. It says we take a moment, we make it personal, we make it special, and oftentimes that note means more than the gift itself. It's the small thing with the outsized impact. It's a love note. And these love notes are things that communities will give to their residents. And if the community is very lucky, the residents might actually feel inclined to give back to the community as well. And I got a few examples here for you. This is Mill Ends Park in Portland, Oregon. And this is, according to Guinness, the world's smallest official city park. And it's actually not much bigger than a planter. But for over 60 years, the city and their parks department has taken great pride and great pleasure in maintaining this lovely little park that is in the median between two roads. There. This is fantastic, right? If you're a local, he says, yes, we're very proud of our tiny park. If you're a tourist, you think that's the coolest thing ever. Of course, you got to take pictures and they dress it up and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, in the grand scheme of Portland, it is a small thing, but it will have an outsized impact on the way you see, the way you feel about the city as a whole. The Lawn on Dee in Boston, Massachusetts. This was an interesting one. So adjacent to their convention center, this is a few years ago, they had this empty green space. And what they were trying to do was activate that space. Like, okay, how do we activate this space? And their solution was, for lack of a better description, to create an adult playground, right? So they bring in the comfy Adirondack chairs. You can pick them up, move them all around. They bring in swings, but not just any kind of swings. They bring in adult-sized swings because, hey, why should kids have all the fun? And then they started to program the heck out of this space. Oh, what happened to that? Oh, there it goes. Okay. They programmed the space. So, you know, there's wine tastings, there's dance classes, there's yoga, there's beer gardens, there's cornhole, there's giant Jenga, right? We all know that giant Jenga actually is a spectator sport. You know, we've all done it. When that thing starts to tilt, you'll stop and you'll watch. So, yeah. But yeah, I think it's kind of brilliant where they put this. Think about this. This is adjacent to the convention center. Think about, on a typical week, how many thousands of conventioneers might cycle through that convention center? You know, thousands of them. And all of them are going to look out the window and go, that looks so much more interesting than the class I'm supposed to be at over here, right? And hopefully they find their way out onto the lawn. They have a great time. They go back home and say, hey, I had a great time in Boston. You know, if you're a local, you love knowing this is happening in your downtown. And again, if you're a tourist, you think this is great. Again, in the grand scheme of Boston, it is a small thing with an outsized impact. St. Pete is, I live in downtown St. Pete, and you know, but this whole county is replete with some great love notes. But I hear people say, I love St. Pete a lot. I think it's maybe, it punches a little bit above its weight and all that stuff. But this is it right downtown. There's a fantastic neon mural there that lights up at night, love shines. Those little expressions, it just makes you feel good, very good there. And how many of you have been down to the pier in downtown St. Pete? It's magnificent, right? And this is the Janet Eichelman piece that's lit up there at night. It's fantastic. It's very interesting during the day. Kind of people go, it's netting in the trees or something like that. What is it? You really have to see it at night to fully appreciate it. But yes, the pier is, again, it's kind of big, and it is definitely a love note. It's one of those things that it doesn't cost any money to go there. It's like you can walk, you can see people. It's fantastic. Definitely a love note. Millennium Park in Chicago, big, expensive love note. How many folks have been to Millennium Park in Chicago? A few of you, yes. And I bet when you did this is called Cloudgate. Of course, unofficially, it's known as the Bean. And the first time you approach the Bean, you're gonna find your own reflection, you're gonna take your own picture, click, right? Because it's basically like a giant funhouse mirror, right? You see all kinds of people are interacting with it, they're playing with it, right? And then you turn around and you look over your shoulder and you're gonna see these two water towers. And these water towers are actually covered in video screens. So those eyes will open, it will smile at you. And then during the summer months, they have these water cannons that shoot water out onto the deck, creating what is essentially a giant above ground pool, a water feature, right? And on a typical summer day, you'll see hundreds of kids playing in that pool. Now, city making point number one that we would all do very well to remember is when kids are happy, parents are happy, right? We know this, we feel this, and kids love these water features. Cities, not so much. They are kind of expensive, they always break down, and yes, those darling children will sometimes do unspeakable things in there, and somebody has to clean that stuff up. I don't have a solution to that last bit, but I did take this picture in a little town outside of Pittsburgh. This is a few years ago. This is a hot summer day. This is Braddock, Pennsylvania, a little town, about 3,000 people. Hot summer day, little downtown park, kids are playing, and that in the corner is a garden hose. I believe we have a tendency to overthink the solutions to our city's problems, right? Somebody says, hey, we want a water feature, we want a splash pad. Well, it costs this much money. It's like, we don't have that much money. Well, we're trying to find the budget next year. Meantime, too bad, so sad. What's wrong with going down to Home Depot, spending 20 bucks, buying a garden hose, and turning on the faucet? Nothing. In fact, there's everything right with that kind of solution. It says, hey, we're being financially responsible, we spent 20 bucks. We're being creative, and most importantly, we're responding to the wants and needs of our community, right? Yet too often, I almost hear people and communities and companies, organizations almost apologize for their garden hose solutions. They say, well, we wanted to do this, but budget was tight, so we had to do that. No, you should be saying, we wanted to do this, budget was tight, but we're able to do this. And you should be trumpeting this as a triumph over adversity, which is exactly what it is. Never apologize for a garden hose solution. It shows you, again, at your very best, being creative, financially responsible, and most importantly, you're responding to the wants and needs of your community, right? So next time we find ourselves in a situation where we don't have all the budget that we'd like, and let's face it, when do we ever have as much budget as we would like? Let's ask ourselves, what's the garden hose solution that, again, gets us down the line and allows us to respond to the wants and needs of our community? Rituals and traditions are fantastic love notes for communities. Cities have them, families have them, schools have them as well. This is one of my very favorites. This is actually from Providence, Rhode Island. It's called Waterfire. And it was started about 25 years ago by the city, and they commissioned this artist by the name of Barnaby Evans. What they're trying to do is reconnect with their river. Because like many cities, they had industrialized their riverfront in the 20th century and they were trying to reconnect with the river. It's like, hey, water features, we love that kind of stuff, right? So what Barnaby did was very simple. He brought in these braziers, anchored them in the middle of the river, they bring in cords of pine wood, and they light them on fire. It's water and fire. It is the most basic thing in the world, and it is absolutely magical. Because you go down there during a water fire event, smell that pine smoke, hear the crackle of that wood, and see these great dancing shadows that are created all over the city, right? Because it's essentially like a giant bonfire on the river. And all of us, we have sat in front of a campfire or a bonfire and been just mesmerized by the experience, right? There's something in our human nature that we can watch fire and be incredibly entertained and content, right? Well, imagine taking that experience to a municipal level and you have water fire. And several years ago, I participated in what they call a lighting ceremony. So like the villagers from a Frankenstein movie, we carried these torches from City Hall down to the waterfront, we put the torches into this urn, and from the urn, they lit water fire. Very cool. This will always inform the way I think and feel about Providence. There's a little town in western Massachusetts called Shelburne Falls. And this is called the Iron Bridge. And 364 days out of the year, the Iron Bridge has cars and trucks that go back and forth across it as a functional bridge, right? But for one night out of the year, and it's been going on for about 20 years now, and it's usually in August, for one night out of the year, they close down the bridge and they have dinner on it. The local restaurants cater the event. They bring out the linen napkins, linen tablecloths. Students are the waiters and waitresses, and it's actually a big fundraiser for the Chamber of Commerce. I love this idea, right? Now you may go across this bridge every day, going to and from work, to and from school, something like that. I guarantee you, having dinner on the bridge will make you see and feel that city, that bridge differently, and make you see and feel your community as a whole differently as well. It sort of begs the question, what could you have dinner on here? What could you have brunch on here? What could you have drinks on here that might actually help people see and experience and feel, this community, this campus, or the community as a whole in a different way? It's a really good idea, and feel free to steal it, because I've shared this story with hundreds of people all over the country, and I've gotten some really interesting feedback. Months later says, "Hey, we did this thing. It's like we made it like this." It's like, yeah, I love hearing that. So again, what could you have dinner on? All right. Dog parks are absolutely love notes, and I know we're going to talk a lot more about dogs here as well. But just from a community standpoint, from a civic standpoint, dog parks are fantastic love notes. Dog parks are social. People talk to each other at the dog park. Now, they don't know your name, but they know your dog's name, right? And eventually they'll get around to learning your name as well. And that's some social capital that didn't exist before. That's because the dog has essentially broken the ice and negotiated that encounter for you, right? Because people talk to each other because a dog breaks the ice, right? Two people might walk down the street, and they pass each other on the sidewalk. On a good day, you might get a grunt, hey, whatever. But if there's a dog involved, it's a cute dog, it's a friendly dog. It's like all of a sudden, oh, what kind of dog is that? Oh, it's like, it's a Pekingese. Like, oh, whatever, So, but people will talk to each other with a dog, right? And by the way, there's also an added benefit for communities as well, and it's security. That's not because people have to own an attack dog or anything like that, but the fact is that we dog owners are out there at all hours of the day and night, creating what Jane Jacobs, the great urbanist, called the eyes of strangers on the street. There's nothing worse than walking down a completely empty street, especially at night, right? We feel pretty exposed by that. But hey, if there's a dog and a dog walker out there, it's all good. So maybe one of the things we ought to be arguing with, communities or some neighborhoods that are maybe a little reluctant to embrace the idea of dog parks in their backyard is, wait a minute, this is added security for you. You don't even have to own a dog, and you get the benefit of the added security of having us in the neighborhood as well. We're going to talk more about dogs, but I think you all can kind of feel me on this one, how important actually dogs have become, to our sense of community. And by the way, if you're going to have a dog park, you should have a dog bar. Anybody been to the dog bar in downtown St. Pete? Yeah. It's amazing how many people are there and how much fun the dogs seem to be having, there. And it's just like organized chaos there. I've been a couple times. My little guy's a little too small, I think, for all of that. And he's like a little too much there, Dad. But yes, people are obviously having a great time. These kinds of things are popping up all over the country there. And it goes to show, again, how important dogs have become to our sense of community. Murals. Murals are incredible love notes. I love a good mural. A mural dresses up a wall and makes it come alive in some ways. It makes an ordinary wall that is, then becomes just a target for somebody to tag it, right, there. But no, a mural actually dresses it up and creates this sense of place there. This is from downtown Minneapolis. Bob Dylan, who's probably way too old for many of you here. But yes, your parents and your grandparents have heard of Bob Dylan. Yes, he's an amazing singer. He's had a really long career, and he's from Minnesota, of course. The times they are a-changing. Fantastic mural. And look at how big that thing is there as well. Very cool. This is downtown St. Pete. Many of you have probably seen this one, the Shark mural. It's in the alley there between Central and First Avenue North. This goes to show that in this day and age, it certainly helps to have a mural that is Instagram worthy, because that has become an incredibly popular place for people to take photos. So yeah, and of course when they tag that, of course it goes out there. It's like, hey, where's that? Downtown St. Pete. It's like, oh, there's a little bit of publicity. That's actually very good for the community there as well. So yeah, an Instagrammable mural goes a long way. Having a Banksy doesn't hurt either. Folks know who Banksy is? The underground street artist from England. Nobody knows officially who he is, and he's been working for years, decades now. And when he does a mural or he does something, it just appears, like he does it very secretly. And he's done stuff all over the world. The thing is once it's done, it's like people flock to it because they want to see it, because he's very provocative, very smart, very clever. And then there's also a small group of people who want to steal it. People have literally stolen walls off of buildings because it has this Banksy thing on. So if you get a Banksy in your community, like this is in Park City, Utah, they actually covered it up. It's behind this plexiglass, cannot be removed. Well, I shouldn't say that. Somebody's going to get very industrious and say, no, I got it. I've got the solution with that. But for the most part, you make it a little more difficult. But yeah, something like that absolutely becomes a destination for urban street art lovers. This is one of my favorites. This is in downtown Huntsville, Alabama. And this is a mural that actually celebrates voting for African American women there in Huntsville. What's really amazing about this is, A, it's on a parking deck, which we don't necessarily think about parking decks as being very attractive. And it's, it's like, okay, it dresses up sort of necessary but not necessarily attractive infrastructure. But you have to stand across the street to fully appreciate it, because when you stand across the street, you realize that she's actually watering this tree. It's like, wow, that's pretty cool. So I'm walking around with the folks from downtown Huntsville about that, and I said, that's now become the most important tree in your downtown. If that tree dies, that's a very bad look. I go, oh yeah, we're very conscious of that. So we're working hard to keep that tree very healthy. So yeah. And just because you don't have maybe wall space, there's other things you can do to dress things up. Murals don't necessarily just have to be on walls. They could be in the crosswalks. We got a lot of crosswalks there, so why not do something interesting like this from Decatur? Or we got a lot of parking lots. Let's dress them up a bit as well. Make that kind of fun. Or how about downtown St. Pete? An intersection there on Central Avenue. They did this several years ago. It still looks amazingly good. They use really good paint to do this there. And by the way, there's a really nice benefit of all of this particular mural. It actually slows the cars down. Traffic calming, right? Everyone's worries about, it's too much, the cars are going too fast here, so they put in speed bumps. Nobody likes speed bumps. Well, this is natural traffic calming, because when an intersection doesn't look quite the way a normal intersection does, cars kind of, well, what's going on here? And they slow down a little bit. So yeah, this has a multi-purpose. So it actually serves a safety function as well. How about that? This is interesting. You have stuff standing around that's like, well, what are we gonna do with that? This is actually Fort Dodge, Iowa. This is apparently the largest mural in the state of Iowa. It's huge, right? Because again, you've got a lot of these silos there next to the highways around, these rural areas. But why not make them, they're functional, they have to work, but why not make them interesting and beautiful too? Or how about this? This is from Lexington, Kentucky. Let's paint the sewers. Seriously? Yeah. Well, part of the reason they did this was that they called it up there storm drain awareness, because too many people throw crap down the sewers, right? So you're trying to get people to stop doing that. So you want them to notice this there, and you dress it up by painting it. Like, that's very clever. It's a very boring problem, but it's a very creative solution to that. It says, okay, we don't necessarily have to just paint, the walls. And you gotta have these bollards. If you do, why not make them something kind of fun there as well? So again, where's the fun? Let's do something like that. Now, this is an interesting one. This was actually a love note from a little town sorry, having a brain fart, in Michigan. Where the heck was this? This is, Ludington, thank you. Ludington, Michigan. I've used this slide for years. Like, where, you ever have that? No, you're too young to have that. I'm getting there. So yes, Ludington, Michigan. And folks in Michigan, when you say, where are you from in Michigan? They'll hold up their hand like a mitten, because the state is shaped like a mitten. They go, oh, where are you from? It's like, okay, you're from north of Detroit. There. So yeah, this Ludington is over here on the knuckle on the west coast of Michigan. So about halfway up. So they had this ugly downtown wall. And several years ago, they commissioned an artist to come in and do sort of a paint by numbers outline on the wall. Then over one weekend, they invited the entire community to come down, grab a number, grab a bucket of paint, go paint your number. And the result was this, right? As art goes, not high art, but it is highly interactive public art. It's the kind of public art people are gonna point to and say, hey, you know what? I helped paint that. And I feel pretty good about that. We feel pretty proud about that. And when we have a sense that, that we did something, we were part of the solution, there we feel a sense of pride, a sense of ownership. We feel protective of this kind of stuff. That's amazing, right? Now, I know this kind of stuff can make, city managers and city attorneys and risk managers, makes them a little nervous. It's like, oh, the risk, the insurance, whatever. It's like, we can relax. We can figure this stuff out. Because again, the upside is pretty significant. Because again, when we feel like we've had a hand in the making of something, there's a huge upside to all of that. So again, there's all kinds of stuff that needs to happen, in our community here on campus, in our community, wherever we live. And why do we have to wait for somebody else to make it better for us? Like, let's get in the game. Let's figure out what we can maybe do to make it better as well. This is Greenville, South Carolina. Now, Greenville makes the argument that they're the best downtown in America, and they make a very good case for it. This is their main street. It's got a fantastic tree canopy. Goes down here several blocks. On both sides of the road, there's all kinds of local restaurants, local shops, right? And at the far end of this street, there is this waterfall in this park with this fantastic footbridge that goes across it. This place is so good, other cities go there to study it, right? Yet, amidst all of this incredibly well done, big, expensive stuff, the thing that that sort of I remembered, the thing that surprised and delighted me, and the story I tell to folks like you is actually something very, very small. It's actually the mice on Main. These little brass mice. And the story goes like 20 years ago, a high school student came into the mayor's office with this idea. Says, hey, Mr. Mayor, I want to do this scavenger hunt downtown. I want to cast these little brass mice, I want to put them downtown on Main Street and encourage people to sort of go and explore the city as they look for the mice. Mayor said, interesting. How much money do you need? And the kid said like $1,200. And you bet for $1,200, the mayor said sold. So they cast the mice, they put them downtown, right? And now you'll see people walking around downtown. They get these maps from the restaurants and shops, right? Says, okay, come to this particular street corner, turn 45 degrees, look up. Boom. And you'll hear kids, women, and yes, grown men squealing with delight once they found one of these mice. And after you found one of them, I swear to God, you were looking everywhere for the damn thing. It's like, oh, there's another one. And you find yourself looking at stuff you otherwise probably would not have even bothered to look at. You're looking at them with a very different sort of set of eyes. And the mice, they're actually all very cute. They've all been given names. They've all been given a backstory. And it's all been collected into this really cool children's book called The Mice on Main. Wow. So again, amidst all this incredibly well done, big expensive stuff, my lasting impression, and I'm certain I'm not alone in this, is of something that small and that kind of silly. So yeah, is this kind of stuff important? It's like, I would say it is. I get it. I think we all can kind of feel that. Yes, those little touches actually do make a huge difference. I do recognize, however, that sometimes we need to go big. This is the Denver Convention Center. This is a piece of public art called I See What You Mean, but of course locally it's known as the Big Blue Bear. Now, the Big Blue Bear is about 15 years old now and has become a very beloved piece, even an iconic piece of public art there in downtown Denver. But that wasn't necessarily always the case. And can you imagine the first time that artist might have come into city council with that idea? Says, hey, I got an idea. I want to do this statue. It's going to be of a bear. It's going to be really, really big. And oh, by the way, it's going to be blue. I suppose that conversation goes over the first time that council hears that. Says, seriously? Do you know how many potholes we could fix for the cost of that ridiculous bear? It's like, yeah, and therein lies the problem or the challenge. Yes, the bear has a cost. And if you're one of those people who sees the world through that lens, if everything is about the cost of things, the pure financial accounting of things, then yeah, you can always justify not doing something by saying, hey, we could always fix more potholes, which again is technically true. But in addition to having a cost, the bear also has value. And to me, the value of the Big Blue Bear is once you've seen the Big Blue Bear, you cannot unsee the Big Blue Bear. You will always remember it and you will always associate it with Denver. And think about how many photographs are taken of this thing every day. Hundreds probably, right? And every one of those that goes out there on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, whatever, all of those are tagged. They are little postcards. They're little love notes from the city of Denver. That absolutely has value, right? So the next time we find ourselves having this conversation about cost, and we always are having conversations about cost, because cost is easy. Cost is a number on a page, right? It's easy to come up with the cost of something. Somebody tells you, oh, it costs this much money. Value is harder. Value requires us to think about something in a different way. Yes, you wrap up the cost into the value as well, but what does it mean? What does it do for us? What are the other externalities for that? So, and again, that's a tougher conversation. But if we want to create a type of community that has room for beauty, art, great design, and yes, big blue bears, then we need to stand up and we need to fight for this kind of stuff. And this, again, is an argument I think we can win. So next time we find ourselves in that situation, says, okay, fine, let's talk about the cost, but then let's also talk about the value. And remember, things have a value beyond the purely financial. And if folks really want to get snippy about this, let's talk about the cost of ugly. Let's talk about the cost of boring. Because you bet those things have a cost. And I guarantee you that those folks who are obsessed with the cost of things have never thought about it in that way. The ultimate, though, in terms of lovable cities and lovable communities are, of course, it's people. The people who are desperately, passionately in love with their places. The ones who go above and beyond ordinary levels of citizenship and will sometimes do extraordinary things for their places, not because they're paid to, but this is how they roll. This is how their sense of community, how their sense of creativity manifests in some amazing ways. I call these folks co-creators because they're essentially creating the experience of the city along with the official folks. It's kind of the job of the mayor and city council and the city administrators and all those folks. It's kind of their job to create the content that is the place. But then there are these unofficial folks, the ones who don't, it's not their day job, but we know how important they actually are to making a great place. Like my friend Bob Devin Jones here. Bob is the creative director of a little black box theater in downtown St. Pete called the Studio at 620. Any of you know the Studio at 620? A couple of you, yeah. It's an amazing place there. And Bob's been doing this for getting on close to 20 years. But Bob is not, he's not one of the most powerful, most influential business people. He doesn't show up on any city org chart, none of that kind of stuff. But those of us who live in St. Pete, we know how important Bob is to making St. Pete a great place to live, work, and play. He's one of those essential co-creators. And all of you probably know your community's version of Bob Devin Jones. You know somebody like that. And you just think, oh, that's just that person being that person, or that's just Bob being Bob. No, I gotta tell you, Bob being Bob is extraordinary. We need more of that. Because Bob doesn't see the problem the same way that the official folks do. And consequently, his solutions can be very different than the ones the official folks are even able to come up with. And we need that. Cities, communities get the big stuff mostly right. We're actually pretty smart about this kind of stuff. Where the real opportunity lies is in this little stuff, the kind of stuff that percolates from the ground up. When folks like you say, hey, I got this crazy idea, but I think it'd be kind of cool, and get in the game and says, wait, that's kind of interesting. Good top down meets interesting bottom up, things meet in the middle, that's when places really get going. This is my friend Andrew Anderson, and I met him several years ago. He told me about a project that made him Iowa famous. All right, so interesting. So Andrew, even though some people say he's an artist, he would say he's more of a maker, right? So he's from a little town on the east side of Iowa, right there on the Mississippi River called Muscatine there. And it's a kind of a rural town, small town. He says, but because I love my town, he told me. And the people there, great people. But the folks in my community don't believe that they are very creative. Because they're hard work and salt of the earth, but again, they don't think they're very creative. He goes, I wanted them to believe something different about themselves. So one day he said he was walking down by the river, and for whatever reason, the idea of the Loch Ness Monster sort of popped into his head. He says, well, what if there was a monster in the river? And what if it had lived there for centuries, there next to the city? So he goes home, he starts drawing, he starts writing, he starts building, he starts, creates a Facebook account, a Twitter page, blah, blah, and all this kind of stuff. So he's building. In the summer of 2012, he debuts the Muscatine River Monster. It appears in the upper floors of this old hotel that had been converted to condos, right? So he's working with the developer, working with the owners there. And these arms, they actually they're like made out of stuff like that you see at auto dealerships. So they move in the wind. It's like, oh my God, how cool is that, right? And it was up for like a week. And he said he spent a lot of time in downtown that week, and he's walking around, and there's all kinds of press coverage around this. People are coming down, taking pictures. There's just a lot of buzz about this kind of stuff. And folks found out he was the guy behind the monster. And they came up to him and says, man, we love the monster. Could we get it in our building? He says, he hadn't intended as anything other than a one-off. But he said, sure, why not? There. So now the monster's made the rounds. It's been in storefronts. It's been in the dorms at the community college. It's been at the public library, and even the 4th of July parade. I love this. I love the fact that these people are looking at it and they're cheering that on, and hopefully they're looking at that going, hey, you know what? One of us made that crazy thing. One of us. Here's an example of a co-creator. Somebody who loves their community, has essentially held up a mirror to his community and says, you know what? Yeah, you think you're one thing, but you are something more. That is important. That is powerful. And what an unlikely vehicle to deliver that message, a monster, right? Nowhere in the city manager's handbook is there a page on monsters. I would worry if there was, right? But again, this is the way that co-creators look at the problem, and they come up with wildly different solutions than the official folks are ever going to be able to do. When was the last time you heard the mayor saying, I've got this idea, I think we should do a monster? It's like, no elected official is ever going to do that. So we need folks who don't see the problem in the same way to come up with stuff that we go, that's awesome, I'm so glad you did it. This one's kind of fun too.
My name is Peregrine Church. I make things that make the world a more interesting place, like a rainwork. Rainworks are pieces of street art that only appear when they're wet, and they're messages or images designed to make people's rainy day a little bit better. Seattle is associated with rain, it's fair to say, and Rainworks just all it needs to be is wet, so it's sort of the ideal Seattle art.
So the stuff that makes Rainworks is biodegradable, environmentally friendly, and completely non-toxic.
The essential ingredient when making Rainworks is a super hydrophobic coating.
Okay, let's see how it works on the never wetted pants in church. So you want me to start on the shirt, all right?
That is a chemical that when you put it on a surface will prevent that surface from getting wet.
What? No! What?
There's this browsing the internet one day and stumbled across a viral video, and the video showed like these really vivid images of like red wine pouring off a white shirt and chocolate syrup pouring off white shoes and people getting buckets of water thrown on them and they're like totally fine. And I'm like, whoa, that's super cool. What can I do with this? It's a spray-on substance, so it made sense. Like, what if you sprayed it through a stencil? So if you put it on concrete, well, ideally it'd be invisible. Instead of the concrete getting dark, the water will just roll right off it and it'll stay light colored. The contrast can be used to create an image. The very first one I did said "stay dry out there" and had a bunch of raindrops falling. It was on a bus stop. And now there's about 25 to 30 rainworks out there. There's a lily pad and pond with frogs hopping between them in Ballard. There's I Heart Rain in UW. At 4th and Bell it says, "Worry is a misuse of the imagination." There's Today's Weather, Rain in Fremont. There's Proud to be Rainy in Capitol Hill. There's Hopscotch at the Junction in West Seattle, and we want to make way more. I mean, it's gonna rain no matter what, so why not do something cool with it?
So how fun is that? Now, I bet if we went and talked with the city and their public works team, or even the facilities management folks here on campus, we asked them, hey, have you ever heard of this super hydrophobic coating? And they go, oh yeah, we've known about that for years. But they never thought to do something like that with it. And that is, again, the genius of what the co-creators bring to the table. Not only do they not see the problem the same way, they don't even see the resources in the same way. So again, they're gonna come up with these wildly different sort of solutions and come up with some very, very cool things. And these co-creators, they're like the spice in what makes a great dish. You don't have to have a lot of spice to make for a flavorful dish, but you need some, otherwise it's a bland dish, right? Every community needs some spicy people, right? The folks, again, who are willing to maybe do stuff a little bit differently, try something a little bit more fun, and yeah, challenge the norms and all that kind of stuff, yes. And the thing is we tend to think that we need to recruit those people from other places, other cool cities, like, oh, we need to get some folks from New York or Boston or San Francisco or Austin, Texas, you know? It's like, no, they're already here. But most of them are just sort of sitting on the sidelines waiting because they don't think they have the right resources, they don't think they have the right education, they don't think they have the permission to be city builders, to be community builders. We need to change that. More of you need to believe that you can actually be part of making a better community. Instead of just sort of like most folks, we sort of sit back and they wait for somebody else to make the community better for them. And as hardworking as some of the official folks are here, I see one person I know from the city of St. Petersburg here as well. They're as hardworking as those folks are, it can still be a long wait because there's a lot of work that has to be done. So why not, again, let's roll up our sleeves and be part of that solution. It can be incredibly satisfying, it can be incredibly frustrating also, I will give you that, but it can also be incredibly fun and incredibly rewarding to start thinking of ourselves as part of the solution to what is happening. And again, you don't have to work on big stuff. I get big stuff, cities and states and all that kind of stuff. That's where the big stuff, yes, they're uniquely situated to solve those big problems. There doesn't have to be a parity of power in this, but there has to be sort of a parity of caring. We all kind of have to give a damn in order for this to actually work, right? So, before COVID, that was sort of the gist of my typical sort of presentation. But COVID has actually been sort of this fantastic opportunity for us to sort of think about stuff, or in some ways what I've called this sort of rethink of things. COVID changed the world. It changed, changed education, changed all of our lives. Sometimes, tragically, yes. Sometimes dramatically for the better. I mean, we've learned some amazing things here, and I think COVID will prove to be one of those seminal moments in most of your young lives. You look back and go, that was kind of a crazy time there, but it set us on a trajectory there that will be impactful for many years to come. And I want to talk about one particular thing here that's going to wrap back around to get back to what we started to talk about, which was the dogs. But I think rethinking infrastructure in the sense of rethinking what is important to making and sustaining our communities. Now, of course, when we think of infrastructure, we think about big stuff. Airports are fantastic infrastructure. I use Tampa Airport way too much. I love Tampa Airport. It is great, but it's, COVID sort of changed that. It's like, yes, it's great to have an airport, but when people aren't flying or it's like, I really don't want to go anywhere, it's like, yeah, that's maybe not quite as important. How about office parks? Office parks are what economic development folks and what cities and counties, they sell this incredibly. This is, it's like, oh, we've got all this office space. Yeah, now we have almost too much of it because not everybody's going back to the office in kind of the same way. So we're rethinking the value of that. Or how about a convention center? Yeah, it's great to have a convention center, but when people aren't traveling and conventioneers aren't having like in-person meetings, they kind of sit empty. They are, they're sort of the white elephants in all that stuff. So they are still important, don't get me wrong, but I think we've realized that they are vulnerable to externalities that we never thought were even possible a few years ago. But what we do realize is certain things are even more important. True high-speed connectivity is incredibly important. Now, like most of us, before COVID, I thought I was pretty set. Yeah, I got your cable modem. It's like, okay, I got Netflix, I could do that, I could stream this, I could do this. Like, we're all good, right? Well, all of a sudden during COVID, that cable modem, thank you, Spectrum, gets eaten up fairly quickly, right? It's like, oh, there's somebody watching, on Netflix. Somebody's online. They're taking class. Somebody else is Zooming a meeting, there as well. Our kids, they're all this stuff. All of a sudden now that so-called, high-speed bandwidth got eaten up really quickly. So communities that actually have true broadband connectivity, they're fiber optic to the house, to the building, that is a godsend. And that will be incredibly important moving forward. That is the kind of thing that companies are looking for when they choose a location for where they want to relocate or where they want to build. True high-speed connectivity. And on the complete opposite end of that, the other thing that we definitely kind of realized how important was during COVID was parks and green space. Remember during the lockdown when you couldn't go out, you couldn't go to the theater, you couldn't go to restaurants, couldn't go to the mall, really couldn't go much anywhere, but you couldn't stay in the house any longer? It's like, what am I going to do? Where did you go? You went to the park. You found the park, you found the trail, you got out. Maybe you dusted off an old bicycle that you hadn't ridden in a while and you got out and rode on the trails. So parks and green space became a godsend to us during COVID, right? They made it possible for us to sort of all collectively get through that. And I think we realized how important it's like, wow, I always liked that park, but now it's like, man, this is a really nice park. So yeah, hopefully we've come to realize just how important that actually is. Now in 2019, I released my third book. It was called The Emotional Infrastructure of Places. And I'm not going to say I was prescient about this stuff, but I kind of hit this one on the head about emotional infrastructure. The things that actually sustain us, right? The things that actually make life possible. And one of the things I wrote about was parks and green space. And even before COVID, parks and green space make urbanity possible. It's like, I love downtowns, I love bustling urban places and stuff like that. But they work because there is still a place where I can go where it's a little bit quiet, where there's trees and there's green, and I can sit and I can sort of de-stress just a little bit. Parks and green space were incredibly important before COVID. After COVID, we realized they are necessary. They're absolutely critical to our sense of well-being in this. And this emotional infrastructure is where I think we're kind of coming full circle and realizing what really is important to sustaining us as human beings and as people who live in a community. And one of those, again, the North Shore Park, incredibly there. We went out, we sat with other people, we kept the distance, of course, and parks and trails became really amazing. The Pinellas Trail is I never really used the Pinellas Trail until COVID. And it's like, wow, this is actually amazing. So emotional infrastructure. Part of that is also dogs. Here's where we come back to sort of your sweet spot in all this. This was a headline during COVID, Washington Post, America's gone to the dogs. Surging demand makes bringing one home a challenge, right? Why? Why during COVID of all times were people adopting dogs in record numbers? Probably cats and birds and fish and ferrets as well, but certainly dogs, right? Why? Well, some would say, well, they were home, they had more time. Well, okay, that's part of it, certainly. But I think what it also was we had heightened up the stress levels to unprecedented levels. And even before COVID, we've created, our environment is a marvel of technology. We've created an incredible, lifestyle and incredible world around us. But it can be stressful. It can even be toxic, right? So I think what was happening is people were adopting dogs because dogs are this incredible medicine, this incredible panacea against this world that we've created. Because think about it. You guys know this. Dogs make you get off the couch. They have to be walked. And when you walk them, as I said before, dogs create this social connectivity because they're actually breaking the ice and people talk to each other around their dogs, right? Simply petting a dog will lower or raise your levels of serotonin. Whatever it is, it's good for you, right? Your blood pressure goes down. Your sense of well-being goes up. And they talk about this epidemic of loneliness that is going on in many countries, certainly here in the United States. We're more connected than ever via our devices, yet in some ways, we feel more alone and isolated than ever before. And the dog is oftentimes, it is our best friend. That dog is, sometimes it is the only creature that many people interact with on a daily basis. That is both wonderful in the sense that they have somebody, and it's also very sad that we've come to that as well. So the dogs are actually this incredible emotional infrastructure for us as human beings. Think about this. I'm old enough to remember the dogs when I was a kid. Dogs were loved, but they were not necessarily part of the family the way they are now. Now you hear people saying, oh, I'm a dog parent, I'm a dog mom, I'm a dog dad. And I do say that as well. And millennials and Zoomers, you guys treat dogs like starter children, right? Study after study shows that you guys are having fewer kids, but having more dogs, right? Interesting fact also, there are a growing number of cities in the US and in many parts of the developed world where dogs now outnumber children. Think about that. Think about how much public policy is built around the idea of parents with kids. I'm not saying we're going to stop talking about that or stop thinking about that, but we'll also have to recognize that, wait a minute, there's this other factor going on here, and it is people with their dogs. So canine infrastructure, people think, oh, it's, we're a dog-friendly campus, we're a dog-friendly business, whatever. It's like, yeah, that's nice, but that's actually not sufficient anymore. It's not just about being dog-friendly. You need to be pro-dog in this sense, because canine infrastructure is human infrastructure, because we have embraced the dog, and the dogs make our lives kind of work. You guys all see that. I mean, I think it's like you don't come into this particular kind of training, not being a dog person or a cat person or an animal person, period. You've recognized how important this connection that we have with our animals is. And I don't think most people fully appreciate that. Of course they love their dog, but they haven't thought about it in the fact that that dog or that cat or whatever it is, I'm gonna go mostly dogs. Cats are kind of indifferent. They're just like, yeah, I can take you or I can leave you, but thanks for the food. I say that as a dog person. I say that with love to all of you cat people out there. Don't play at me. It's like, I love all the pets. I really do. But dogs are kind of special because I think of that connection. And again, this idea of canine infrastructure, this is a necessary component. I think when we start selling what we do, saying, yes, so I'm a veterinarian, I'm a vet tech, I do this. But you know what? That actually is helping, you're not just helping the animal, you're literally helping the person, that family as well. I bet all of you have seen that. You've felt that. Because when you're dealing with that, it's like if someone brings this a dog or an animal that's ailing, it's like a member of the family. And the reason it's become like a member of the family is because we've elevated the importance of these creatures because it helps us deal with the complexities of our world. Dogs have become necessary emotional infrastructure. That's my little guy, that's Dobby. He's a rescue there, so he had some issues early on there, but of course, Dobby, I'm a Harry Potter fan, so yes, you can tell. But dogs have become emotional, they fill this gap in our emotional infrastructure. So when you talk about what you do, people think, oh, that's really sweet. They say, yeah, you work with animals. Like, yeah, I do. But the animals, I'm actually working with you as well. So think about that. You are helping people. It is from a health standpoint, what you guys do is actually helping not only the animal, but it's helping the people and really the community as a whole. So if you can start embracing that and spreading that gospel, I think it will help people appreciate what you guys do, maybe in a whole new different light, and elevate the importance of this kind of canine infrastructure for us as emotional infrastructure. And I got one more example here of emotional infrastructure because on the plus side, I think it's incredibly important, but there also are times when we need it in a different way. Lake Eola in downtown Orlando. Beautiful area. Round Lake has this old, well, it was an old fountain in it. The fountain has been there for over 100 years in various forms and whatnot. And about 15 years ago, the fountain was really suffering. It was old. It was, costing hundreds of thousands of dollars just to maintain it. Hydraulics were bad. Engineering was all old stuff. It was failing. In like 2009, it was struck by lightning, and it totally fried the innards of the fountain. So it was dead. And a lot of people says, well, that's like, well, no, we don't have to pay for just maintaining it anymore. But Mayor Buddy Dyer says, hey, you know what? This is important stuff. This fountain is symbolic. We're going to fix it. And so he found some money. It was going to cost several $1 million to fix. And remember, 2009, we were in the midst of a pretty significant financial crisis. So nope, we're going to find the money because it is important. And in the summer of 2011, actually it was on July 4th, 2011, they rechristened the fountain. And it looks much like this. And the mayor told me that night, it's like he was walking around downtown after the opening there around the lake, and hundreds of people came out for that. And people were coming up to him and thanking him. Says, hey, thank you for relighting the fountain. Says, it felt like the heart of my city had gone dark. And he realized this is like really important stuff. It symbolically meant something. He was building emotional infrastructure, and I don't think he knew that. I know he didn't know that because I didn't know that because I hadn't even come up with that phrase yet, but it absolutely was. And it became very evident, sadly, on this date, June 2016, the Pulse nightclub shooting. At the time, it was the largest mass shooting in the United States. 49 people were killed. Tragic. Sadly, this has been repeated many times since then. But when stuff like this happens, and it happens way too often, when stuff like this happens, there's this natural need for communities, for people to come together to support each other, right? And when they did in Orlando, in the aftermath of this tragedy, it wasn't organized by the city, it wasn't organized by any official folks, it was just the community, the folks who cared enough, they came together, and when they came together at Lake Eola. Tens of thousands of people. So emotional infrastructure is there not only to make us feel good, but it is there in our time of need, when we literally want to fall to our knees and weep in anger and in frustration. So emotional infrastructure, yes, it supports us, makes all what we do sort of possible, but it is there, again, to hold us in times of crisis. And this is the kind of thing that I tell cities now. It says, unfortunately, when you're thinking about building better places, you need to think about where people are going to come together to celebrate, and possibly even to grieve and to mourn there as well. Emotional infrastructure. And that fountain actually became the new symbol for the city of Orlando. They changed their logo, they changed their flag, because they recognized how important that fountain had become to their sense of identity and who they were as a community. Emotional infrastructure. You guys are in the emotional infrastructure business. You didn't even know that, but you absolutely are. And I hope that gives you a new kind of appreciation for the work that you do, and recognizing that it is important to people, to their pets, to their animals, and to the community as a whole, because that relationship that we have with our pets, especially with our dogs, it makes our lives better. So thank you for doing what you guys do. I have a couple closing thoughts, and we'll maybe have some questions here for you. Everyone's talking about work, remote working, remote school. Hi, folks, for you guys right there, yeah. So it's kind of crazy, right? So if you're not tied to any particular place, if you can work from anywhere, then where you choose to live becomes an incredibly important decision, And before COVID, we thought there was a fairly small number of people who could be these sort of tech nomads, the ones who could live and work from anywhere. All they needed was a laptop and a cool internet connection, right? Good. Well, it turns out that's a lot more of us than we ever thought. Because look at how many people are now, commuting to work via Zoom, and they're in and out of the office, but they're not necessarily tied to the desk. They're not tied to that office space or that factory in the same way that they were before. That's an interesting choice. So if all of a sudden now where I choose to live is uncoupled from where I have to work, that's interesting. Now that becomes my choice. Where do I want to go that resonates with me? Where do I feel comfortable? What lifestyle do I want? That's really kind of interesting. And think about this, because so much of our work life was our social life for many folks. So those social connections are really important. Well, if work is not going to provide that, then how do we fill that sort of gap? Well, I think, as social creatures, and we're all social creatures, right? We're endlessly fascinated with each other. Well, if work is not going to provide those connections, then other things have to sort of step up. Where's that sense of community going to come from? Well, I think it's got to come from our cities, our neighborhoods, our schools. So this sense of community, and I was told that it's been a while since you guys came together, numbers like this is a good turnout for an event here. It's like, thank you for doing that. But I think we recognize, you know what? That's like, yeah, this is convenient, but there's something kind of nice. There's something that is just good for us as human beings. It's like, hey, we're in the same space together. We can talk to each other. We can look each other in the eye. And all this, you smile, I smile, that whole kind of thing. Yes, that matters. As human beings, as social creatures, this kind of stuff absolutely does matter. So yeah, who's going to step up and fill that gap? This one is good advice that I wish somebody had told me when I was younger as well. So Albert Einstein, pretty smart guy. He said, a person who never made a mistake never tried anything new. I get on cities all the time because I'm talking to mayors and council members and administrators and all this other stuff. And cities the official folks, they are deathly afraid of making a mistake Because somebody's going to say, well, you made that mistake on your watch. It's like, oh, and somebody's going to run that as a primary issue, and you're going to get, that's going to be an election issue. It's like, so yes, cities become very afraid of making mistakes. And consequently, they get very comfortable with the idea of little incremental improvements. A little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. That's fine. But I think there's something to be said for, for making a mistake and going all in and making a big mistake and learning from that. Because we learn a lot from mistakes. Sometimes I think we learn more from our mistakes than we do from our successes. Because, something succeeds, you go, well, I think it's like, yeah, it's really cool. I think it was because of this. But if something fails, you know exactly why it failed, right? We learn a lot more from failure there. And let's not be afraid to fail, right? I think that's sort of a good lesson there. Because the thing is, if we're so afraid of making a mistake, we never try anything new, then at best, that's a recipe for mediocrity. In fact, in all likelihood, it's a long-term recipe for failure. Because other people, other communities, other companies, other organizations, they may make a mistake, they may fall behind, they may make another mistake, but eventually they're gonna figure it out. And once they do and they start clicking along, they're gonna rapidly outpace us because again, we're very comfortable with just a little bit better, just a little bit better. Pretty smart guy. Don't be that kind of person who's so afraid of never making a mistake that they never try anything new. And last, find the fun. City building, work, life needs to be fun as well. There are times that are absolutely serious, but if you can figure out a way to integrate fun and ask that question and remind yourself, it's like, wait a minute, this is serious stuff and I get that we have to do that, but it doesn't mean it has to be dreary and dull, and soul-sucking at the same time. Right? So there's a way to blend all this stuff together. Now, sometimes it's a question of degree, and I certainly get that, but if you ask that question, you're gonna get more interesting results. So where's the fun? I hope you find it. I'd be very happy to answer any sort of questions that you guys might have, thoughts, concerns, anything else. Where do I park? That kind of, yeah. So, do we have any online questions? I don't know if that was even an option, so.
Where do I park? It's a good lead-in because there was a piece in the Times last Sunday, the whole issue of parking. People can't afford to go to a Bucks game because they pay as much as $50 to park for the event. The same thing I think is very true at St. Pete. I live right here in Seminole.
Yeah.
I really have to, because of budget, decide which events I want to go to.
Yeah.
Because parking is an incredible problem in St. Pete. And also, there is we have no light rail in the area. We had a governor here for 8 years who was against taking any money for infrastructure as far as transportation is concerned. So,
well, here's the thing about parking. Parking is one of those things that you never really solve. Parking is it's infrastructure, it's necessary infrastructure, but to me it's infrastructure. I have a whole section I do on this, I've written about it. There's infrastructure that makes you sad and mad, right? Because think about it, all of our emotions around parking are negative, right? There is never any time, parking, the rare instance of when you're happy about parking is when you're going somewhere and somebody pulls out right in front of you and you slide in right behind them, and in that second you feel like a god. It's like, yes, thank you. But then, as you say, you still have to pay for it, you still have to figure out, it's okay, is it the app? Do I have to go to the machine? Do I have to do this? It's like, yeah, parking is a pain in the ass. That's the thing. So unfortunately, cities struggle around this idea. It's like, well, how do we do this? How do we do this? So, and there's all kinds of interesting sort of solutions of trying to figure out parking. But here's the thing. You can't fix parking, but what you can fix is you make the destination worth the effort or even the cost. The reason why people may say, like, well, Bucks games are really expensive is like, because the Bucks weren't very good last year. It's like, of course people want to see Tom Brady, but it's like, But during that year, that magical year when we were on Super Bowl run, I don't think they may have complained about it, but they're still paying for it. So you make the destination, you make the team worth the effort, they'll go. You make downtown worth the effort. It's like, it's a little pricey, or I have to park further away, I have to walk, or I have to take the bus or the shuttle or something like that. It's not, I can't just park right in front the way we have, that's the expectation. That's actually the thing. We don't have a parking problem in America, we have a parking expectation problem. Most people think they should be able to park right in front of where they're going. It's like, and if they can't do that, they say it's a pain. It is a pain, but it's not. But I think part of it is like we need other options. We do need light rail, or we need transportation options. The new Sunrunner that goes to the beach from downtown, they've extended that. It's free until October again. I hope folks you'll take advantage of something like that because I think that's really wonderful. And there's talk of saying we're going to keep it free because they want that sort of connectivity. So yes, parking is a pain. But the trick is, instead of trying to fix parking, which you will never do, because again, all of our emotions around parking are negative, make the destination worth the effort.
Do you have any other examples of cities besides St. Pete that are really have a thriving canine infrastructure?
Surprisingly, most downtowns, I've seen this. I've seen good stuff in Seattle, temporary dog parks, around all of this kind of stuff. One of the best examples, believe it or not, came, and I wrote about this, came from downtown Las Vegas. So downtown Las Vegas is not the Strip. There is a difference. So downtown Las Vegas is actually, it's a working city and all this stuff. And folks, you guys know the company Zappos? The online shoe company is bought by Amazon. Yeah. So Zappos used to have its corporate offices in the outskirts of Las Vegas. But several years ago, they moved downtown to the old City Hall. And they took over that whole complex. So several thousand people are down there. And they are a dog-friendly office, so you can bring your dog in. But you don't always want to bring the dog in, right? So actually, there was a woman who created, she called it the Bark Park. And it was essentially a club for dogs. It's canine, it's doggy daycare, but you had to be a club member to be part of it. So they could do boarding, they had training, they had a really nice outdoor facility and all that kind of stuff. And the reason why that got built was because the employees at Zappos demanded, says, we want an option here. And somebody says, hey, I know, we'll do that. And it's like almost a block big. It's really kind of wonderful. And it's not that different from, most canine, doggy daycare centers, but it was built specifically because of an economic development issue around that a large business was demanding that, and somebody said, I can do that. So yeah, lots of places are doing that kind of stuff because I think that companies are realizing, wait a minute, my employees want want dogs, like, oh, they got to go home to do this, it's the daycare issue for the 21st century in some ways. So yeah, yes.
I don't have a question, but I have a comment to.
Please.
To piggyback on what you're asking. So I'm a dog trainer, a force-free dog trainer, and I resonate with everything you say. So thank you. I just signed a contract with a new vet center in Land O'Lakes,
Okay.
and in that area, Bexley is a new and upcoming area, and I've noticed while I'm driving through here, these communities are being built as small cities.
Yeah.
And I moved from Ohio, and around the universities.
Where in Ohio?
Columbus.
Akron, but I went to school in Columbus. So yeah,
Oh, I worked at Ohio State University.
Oh, there
for
you
a
go.
long time, yeah.
OHIO.
OHIO. But I'm noticing how people are listening, that people want to be offered better options.
Yeah.
And now where I have a contract with MSC Vet Center, it's a 16,000 square foot state-of-the-art facility. They now sign me as a trainer. They now offer everything under one roof, training, boarding, daycare. And they have a wonderful orthopedic surgeon. So communities are listening, and these little villages are popping up, and around college campuses is really becoming a hotspot.
Yeah.
And so they are listening.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I'm
you know why
just
they're
blown away.
listening? Because there's money to be made there.
There's lots of money
Yes.
to be made. Yes, that's why I'm a dog trainer.
Yeah, well, but as you say, they're building, this idea of small cities and all this kind of stuff. I worked with one of the big apartment developers from the West Coast, and they loved what I talked about. So we did this whole sort of rethink for them, and they're building dog parks in their apartment complexes. Yeah, and that is becoming like the standard sort of thing. They lead with the dog park. Oh, we have a dog park, community dog park there. Used to be it was the pool. It's like, yeah, it's still got a pool, but we've also got a dog park. And that becomes sort of the thing. And I think that reflects the changes that folks are seeing. And the fact that you're seeing that kind of development, yeah, it just goes to show. It's like people realize, well, wait a minute. There's a huge, the pet care industry is like multi-billion dollars every year. It's like, yes, so smart communities and smart business people are figuring out, well, wait a minute, there's a reason to do this. There's all kinds, there's certainly a financial reason to do it, but there's also really good community reasons to do it as well. So yeah, good luck with that. So. Yes, Susie.
Thanks, Aaron. Thank you for today. You commented earlier, and we're probably in the same age range, so when we were growing up, pets were pets.
Yeah.
And you just recently just talked about the economic impact. as pets have become integrated into our families, you spend money on your families.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so we are seeing people spend money on our families, and even the businesses downtown and the types of businesses that are coming in downtown. Because I'm sitting in the same row as some of our other St. Pete Paws collective members, we have, the city of St. Petersburg does have a pet-friendly initiative, and part of it is how do you build that balance between people that might be pet enthusiastic and maybe not so pet enthusiastic, but also
Code enforcement has a thing to say about all that too, yeah, especially if you're a restaurant,
there's
yeah.
other definitions, but we like ours better. So I think part of it is how to get that message out. You know, and I think what you talked with us about today will help that. I mean, we're even reaching out into our rental communities, and as you see some of the new developments coming in, you notice the dog parks, you notice the area, the dog washes, and some of the other things, really to integrate all amenities, you know, and that emotional infrastructure, because from a developer standpoint, from a business standpoint, it does come down to money. But the other piece of it is, you know, if I have this, people like to stay longer, and they are gonna recommend my place to their friends.
There are restaurants downtown that have dog menus.
Yes, no, there are, and we even certify our pet-friendly businesses. We actually have an inspection after this today to take a look at some of our kind of non-traditional businesses to see how they're welcoming pets. So kudos, we hope to see.
So thank you for being part of that infrastructure that makes all of that sort of possible. So again, as caretakers of, you know, our pets, our animals like that,
so hopefully we'd like to see you kind of For the Love of Cities Revisited pet style, maybe down the road.
Yeah. I want to respect everybody's time here as well. So thank you for the opportunity to come and talk with you guys. It's a really interesting, again, I talk about dogs, but I wasn't able to, usually don't dive quite so deep into all this, but I think obviously this is important to you guys. But I think what you guys do really actually is important, not only to the animals and their families, but really to this sense of community. So thank you for doing what you do and all of that. I have some books here if folks are interested. I can, you know, credit cards if you're interested. Those, I'd be happy to sign it. But otherwise, I'm going to turn it back over to Aaron, who can maybe thank everybody. So.
Yes, so thank you all for coming today. Why don't we give Peter a round of applause?
Thank you so much. I hope you had a wonderful time today and you learned a little bit about the importance of civic dialogue and the importance of how animals shape and make us much happier. If you haven't done so, please be sure to like us and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and also check out our website with more details on what ISPS has to offer. We welcome your feedback and are open to student input in particular. We have some wonderful programs coming up that we'd like to share with you, but of course you can find all of that on our social media and our website. On Tuesday, April 4th from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m., we'll be holding the Nursing Workforce Dilemma in Florida. It is our first in-program platform outside of Pinellas County, and it'll take place at the Pascal Hernando State College Instructional Performing Arts Center in Wesley Chapel. Just like all of our other programs, you can attend virtually, and we are a proud partner with Pascal Hernando State College to bring the powerhouse of panelists to discuss this most important issue. And then on Saturday, April 22nd from 8:30 to 10, if you love the earth the way we do, we will be having Earth Day beach cleanup. We will be meeting at the Treasure Island and Madeira Beach Chamber of Commerce building located in Treasure Island, and all are welcome to join. And finally, on Thursday, April 27th from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m., we will be holding a State of the Beaches Mayor's Town Hall, where multiple mayors from our beach communities will speak on issues that are respective and facing their particular cities. And afterwards, there will be a reception to meet those mayors. We did this last year. It was packed, and it's one you don't want to miss. And finally, thank you again for joining us for today's event. We can't do this without you. The Institute was created by Congressman Young as a way to bring voices together in civic, political, and economic nonpartisan dialogues, and you make it happen for us. So thank you.